Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, in the Wall Street Journal, which is very well plugged into the Trump administration, one of their big stories is now whether U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, Judge Jeanine, as she used to be known on Fox News, is either going to resign or will outright be fired as the U.S. Attorney. And the reason why is that Trump, both publicly and privately, according now to multiple sources within the administration, now say that he is very angry with Jeanine Pirro, that he believes she let him down and let the country down in her decision to drop the case regarding the graffiti and the damage that was done to the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Now, just to set the context of everything that's been going on, as you know, President Trump made a very big push to revamp Washington, D.C. For 4th of July and our 250th anniversary celebration. And one of the crown jewels was the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. He spent $16 million, or the government did. He used taxpayer money to completely remodel it, modernize it, get it properly painted. When they first unveiled it, it looked absolutely stunning and beautiful. It is a gorgeous reflecting pool right there in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Now, because Trump has been trying to beautify Washington, D.C., and frankly beautify many of our other national memorials and monuments, they have now become a target for the radical left and the anti-Trumpers who want to hurt him and hurt the country no matter what at any cost. And so there was a major incident last month last month, in fact, 2 months ago, forgive me, in which multiple individuals, nearly a dozen, were caught on camera and seen eyewitness testimony using a box cutter or a knife to start slicing away at the lining and the coating that was put in on the reflecting pool to damage the pool, not just on the sides, but even at the bottom of the pool. And so President Trump, livid at this vandalism, and I don't blame him, and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, livid at this vandalism, said, you know what? Enough is enough. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, these rampaging Democrats for years think that they can go out there, deface, degrade, destroy statues, memorials, monuments, and they think they can get away with it and there are no consequences. And so they asked Judge Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, to investigate. Now, this is very important. Jeanine Pirro held a major press conference last month in which she said that multiple people, led by three-time Olympian, he was a canoe racer, a canoeist, David Hearn, had deliberately and violently ripped up and damaged the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. And she held a huge press conference saying that he's guilty, they're going to prosecute, they're going to charge him, he and a couple of others as well, and a grand jury issued an indictment. In fact, it was a felony, not even a misdemeanor indictment or a misdemeanor, a misdemeanor charge. It was actually a felony charge. Felony indictment of federal malicious destruction of property, in which David Hearn was facing up to 10 years in prison. President Trump said, throw the book at him. Doug Burgum, the Interior Secretary, said, throw the book at him. The media then turned it into a cause célèbre, saying he's an Olympian. We should go easy on him. This is much ado about nothing. Who cares about the lining of the reflecting pool? In other words, yeah, maybe he did damage it, maybe he didn't. But as far as we're concerned, this is all small potatoes, and Trump should be focusing on other issues. And the U.S. Attorney, Judge Janine Pirro, should be focusing on other issues. Well, on Friday, unbeknownst to President Trump, she and the DOJ dropped all the charges against David Hearn and 3 others. They had misdemeanor charges for vandalizing and destroying or ripping up, damaging the reflecting pool. Trump found out after the fact. Now, the key point is this. According to Janine Pirro, she says that the reason why they had to drop the charges is that there's ultimately, according to her, no evidence that David Hearn actually committed any vandalism. She says the pool has been ripped up and damaged because of faulty installation by the contractor. That it was, in her words, a botched job. And that the reflecting pool, according to her, is ripping apart, or at least the lining, the coating, is ripping apart all over the place, even in the middle of the pool. So she's saying, how could David Hearn have done that? That's almost impossible. How could these other vandals have done that? It's almost impossible. So she's saying, I am not going to take this to court, even though there's a grand jury indictment, because I believe that the evidence shows Hearn is ultimately innocent and these others are also innocent. And so the Department of Justice has now dropped all charges against Hearn and the other 3 that were indicted as well. President Trump, when he found out over the weekend, was absolutely livid. And when asked by reporters, he said that Janine Pirro had, quote, folded like a wet umbrella, that she had choked when she faced hostile questioning from a judge as they were pushing forward with the indictment, and that she's now sending the wrong signal that vandals and people like anti-Trumpers like David Hearn can damage and vandalize our national monuments with impunity. And he let it be known he is not happy with her. He believes she has badly bungled this case. Listen now to President Trump. Roll cut 5. Mike.
Graffiti all over it. I won't say what was on the sidewalk, but horrible, disgusting stuff. And not only did we fix it, we have military standing there watching it. And if anybody touches it, that was the one mistake with the reflecting pond. They hadn't put up the cameras yet. They had enough up because you see what's happening. But if they would have had them up, we would have had it would have been a lot easier. And I was disappointed with Janine Pirro. Really disappointed with Janine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella, and people get away with things, and it's a disgrace.
Now, I got to say, I do sympathize with Trump. I really do. The graffiti is disgusting. Not just that it's so ugly, but the stuff that's said is so vile and so malicious. And this is a national monument, on top of that. And look, this is the problem now. And by the way, they do have some cameras. He's right. There should have been many more, but they do have some cameras. And what the cameras do show is you see people sticking their hands into the pool, many of them with knives and with box cutters. So they are ripping up part of the lining. There's no question. There's no question. And that's why Trump is saying, and he's posting these videos on Truth Social saying, can't you see they're ripping up the lining? What is wrong with you? Prosecute these people. But she says, well, yeah, maybe they are ripping up some of the lining, but the initial cause for so much of the damage is the initial botched job by the contractor. That's Jeanine Pirro's argument. Now, let me just say this. Jeanine Pirro has been an unwavering defender of Trump for many years. It's one of the reasons why he appointed her first as acting U.S. attorney and now as the actual, she was confirmed as a U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. But look, you look at something like this. 6:20 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Let me just say a couple more points, and then I want to go to the phone line. 617-266-6868. Number one, it was U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, who held a very dramatic press conference about a month ago in front of all the cameras, in front of all the press, saying that David Hearn, this three-time, anti-Trump Olympian, rabid Democrat, rabid never-Trumper, was responsible, according to her, for quote-unquote violently and deliberately vandalizing and ripping up the lining, the sealant, on the reflecting pool, and that he used either a knife or a box cutter to do it. And she said that the evidence was overwhelming and that enough is enough. We are not going to tolerate this continual attack, this, the graffiti, the vandalism, the destruction, the degradation of our national monuments and our national memorial. Now, a month later, she does a complete 180. And on Friday, as I said in my opening monologue, she's now dismissed all charges against David Hearn and against several others. They were misdemeanor charges with the others. This one was a felony. He was going to face up to 10 years in jail because she said, well, we just don't have the evidence. Well, if you don't have the evidence, why did you go to a grand jury and get an indictment? If you didn't have the evidence, why the big press conference? Why there was she, there she is acting like, she's the sheriff of Washington, D.C., and now she's going to take down David Hearn and all these anti-Trump vandals. So, this is why Trump now feels that he's been blindsided and ambushed. And furthermore, if you're going to drop the charges, could you at least let the president know about it? Because this has been such a high-profile case. It's been in the media now for the last couple of months. And the left and the media have been waging almost a campaign on behalf of David Hearn because they're trying to because they wanted to ruin the 250th anniversary. They don't like the fact that the reflecting pool is beautiful and that Trump actually did beautify it. So they want to make it seem it was a sloppy job. It's got algae everywhere. It wasn't properly done. It was rushed. And so that, again, they're just trying to attack Trump for the sake of attacking Trump. So to me, if you didn't have the evidence, you shouldn't have indicted. And you shouldn't have held a big press conference saying you're going to get him. It's amateur hour, what she did. I'm sorry. And then she reversed herself and decided to drop all charges, dismiss all charges against everybody. So by the way, nobody's going to get punished for all the vandalism and all the graffiti and all the damage to that Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Nobody's going to be held accountable. And Trump's point is, and you decided to dismiss this on Friday, and I find out about it in the papers on Saturday without even giving me a heads up. Listen now to the president. He said that she folded like an umbrella. He said he was very disappointed with her. As he put it, really disappointed. Why are people getting away with things? And then he said she confronted a hostile liberal judge when she kept trying to push through her indictment. And he thinks that she choked. That when the rubber met the road, faced with a hard judge, faced with all this media opposition and Democrat opposition, that she just decided it's not worth it. I'm going to cut everything loose. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
because the judge was extremely unfriendly to Janine. And frankly, I think she choked because the judge was really vicious. Instead of going after the people that did it, the judge went after her and went after her department. And I guess she choked. I don't know what the hell happened.
Are you reconsidering her role?
I don't know what. You don't. You're fake news. Don't ever talk again. You're fake news. One of the worst in the business. Fortunately, nobody watches you. But something happened.
So I think that was CNN. It was like, just please, just shut up. I don't even want to hear from you anymore. Now, Trump then went to Truth Social, and he posted videos. They're 4-minute long videos, cameras, which show vandals with their hands sticking it into the pool. They have knives, they have box cutters, you can see it. And they're slicing up the sealant. And they're cutting up the pool. And this is what Trump wrote. Look for yourselves. He says, here's the video. Look for yourselves at the vandalism that took place at the reflecting pool. The material is being cut with a knife or a box cutter for all to see. And he says to Judge Janine, you didn't see this? This is not evidence? And then Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, he then weighs in and he slams Judge Janine's claim that the installation had been flawed and that the Trump administration didn't have enough evidence to pursue. And then he writes that we provided every piece of evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office. This is what Burgum wrote. And he said the evidence is clear. Okay, President Trump now, both publicly and especially privately, is now openly discussing whether he should oust Jeanine Pirro as the U.S. attorney. He is very angry and disappointed with her in her decision now to drop the case against David Hearn and other vandals accused of causing massive damage to the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Now, just very quick, because I want to go to the phone line, 617-266-6868. Doug Burgum, the Interior Secretary, also publicly slammed Jeanine Pirro's claim that the installation was flawed, that the contracting had botched the job, and that's why the lining and the sealant were coming apart inside the pool. Much more was caused by the contracting job not being done properly than by actual knives and box cutters and vandalism, according to Judge Janine. What Burgum says, and this is what he writes, quote, the evidence is clear. Vandals have repeatedly caused damage to the reflecting pool. Some of these acts were even caught on camera. And he says then we provided all of this evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office, i.e. Jeanine Pirro. He said we also provided the U.S. Attorney's Office expert and eyewitness testimony to the damage done by vandals and provided every piece of evidence they asked for in the requested timeline detailing each area of damage at the pool. And then he goes on to say it's basically that the reflecting pool is part of the Lincoln Memorial. It goes back to over 100 years to 1922. And that he says, look, the president doesn't want to just make Washington safe again. He wants to make our nation's capital beautiful again. And that's why, he wants to beautify Washington, D.C., and part of it was the reflecting pool. And he says there's a larger problem in our country. There is this large push by the radical anti-American left to as he calls them, deranged people who want to destroy, deface, or degrade our monuments. And it's time that they finally be held accountable. Basically, he's saying Judge Janine fell on the job. I'm just giving you what Doug Burgum is saying, that she's failing on the job. That she, as Trump put it, she choked. Now, my question to you, it's a double-barreled question. Question number one, are you happy with Jeanine Pirro's performance as U.S. Attorney? Because one of the things Trump is complaining about is he says, yeah, she talks a big game on, on cable TV or when she has a TV show. But I'm not seeing many arrests. I see a big mouth. I see high-profile press conferences. I see a lot of bluster. I see a lot of threats. I see a lot of, she likes the camera. But, for example, she made a lot of noise about putting this guy, David Hearn, the Olympian, to prison. And suddenly she, on a dime, does a U-turn and says, no, we don't have the evidence. Well, as Trump says, if you didn't have the evidence, he says you do, but if you didn't have the evidence, why hold a press conference? Why go to a grand jury? Why try to, why get an indictment? And then all of a sudden, you just drop the case like a hot potato. He also says that on many other cases, same thing. She talks a big game, but she doesn't deliver. So, is Jeanine Pirro, is she another Pam Bondi? Is she now on her way out? That's question number one. Should she be on her way out? Question number two. And the big question, and it's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Ultimately, is President Trump right about the reflecting pool and the vandals and the vandalism towards it? Did Jeanine Pirro choke? Did she choke? Did she refuse to follow through on the indictment because she faced a hostile judge, a hostile press, a hostile Democratic Party, and just said, it's not worth it, I'm going to drop these cases, even though the vandals now are going to get away with it? So, A, yes, she did choke. B, no, she didn't choke. She had new evidence, and she went with the new evidence and decided not to prosecute because the evidence just wasn't there. In other words, she did her job, and she did her job commendably. A, she choked. B, she didn't choke. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in National ER. You can also vote via X, and boy, was I active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. Mark in Medford, you're going to kick us off, Mark. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Jeff, how are you this Tuesday?
Very good. How are you, Mark?
All right. So at first, I'm saying to myself, is it possible that she had all this evidence and, she had got an indictment, she had a press conference, and now she's changing her mind and dropping all the charges? So I'm saying to myself, could it possibly be that she was compromised or threatened? But as smart as Sandy is, she said to me, there is no way in hell, she reminded me, that you're not threatening Judge Jeanine Pirro. You're not threatening her at all because she won't have that crap. So then I say to myself, okay, is it possible that she just dropped the charges because she realizes as long as there's a liberal judge presiding over this case, that she's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. She's not going to get the outcome that she wants, and says, "To hell with it, because I know I'm not going to win anyway, and I'm just wasting my time."
Well, Mark, you may be right. I think you are right, actually. I mean, I can't get into her mind. I mean, I don't know her mind. But the way you lay it out, I think you're probably right. That's her state of mind. That's why she ultimately changed her decision. This is, I think, why Trump is very frustrated. And I share this frustration with him. And many in MAGA do. We can't get Comey. We can't get Clapper. We can't get Brennan. Oh, we can't get Fauci, although we're trying, but we can't even get Fauci. In other words, crime after crime after crime, and nobody goes to jail. Nobody ever goes to jail if they're a Democrat. And here you've got vandalism. And as Trump says, I got the pictures. Here it is. They're sticking their hands in the freaking water. You can see the knives and the box cutters. And you're still not, no one ever goes to jail if they're a Democrat? So Black Lives Matter and Antifa can burn buildings down. They can destroy neighborhoods. They can go to city after city and destroy statues or deface them or degrade them or whatever, and nothing happens. Now they rip up the Lincoln Memorial Pool, and again, nothing happens. Does anybody ever go to jail? Or do all Democrats have a get-out-of-free jail card? And I think that's what Trump's frustration is. From what I understand in private, he said to her, if we can't send a couple of vandals to prison, then what's the point of us having a U.S. attorney's office? I mean, we've given you all the video footage. I mean, you should be getting this. We gave it to you. So he's like, look, do you want to prosecute or not? And, he goes, I told you this was a tough job. It's the U.S. attorney's office in D.C. It's going to be very unpopular. You're going to have the media. You're going to have judges. You're going to have the whole court system against you. But I didn't hire you because you're, a shrinking violet. I hired you because I thought you were a hard-as-nose prosecutor who was going to get the job done like a pit bull no matter what. So what I'm saying, Mark, is think about it from Trump's point of view. You catch them on tape, and they're ripping up parts of the lining of the pool. You clearly see it. And no one still gets to go to jail. But when it comes to us, you're on the steps of the Capitol. You're not even in the Capitol. And you're an old lady. And you're unarmed and defenseless. And they hunt you down with the FBI in freaking Alaska, kick the door down with a SWAT team. Okay, President Trump now seriously discussing, apparently in private, according to many of his aides, getting rid or ousting Jeanine Pirro as the U.S. attorney in D.C. He says that he felt utterly betrayed by her decision to drop all charges against David Hearn, a three-time Olympian. I think he's a canoe racer or something. He's a rabid never-Trumper. I mean, that's the reason why he was hanging around the reflecting pool. And she dropped charges against him. She dropped charges against others who were also charged with vandalizing and the pool and writing disgusting graffiti. Trump now says he's very angry with her, says that her court filing was a personal betrayal. Apparently, they met behind closed doors at the White House late yesterday afternoon. We don't know exactly what was said, but Trump let her know he's not happy. And so she may be fired. We'll see. She may be forced to resign, or he may give her a mulligan, give her another chance. We'll find out in the next couple of days. What is clear is that the president has openly criticized her, as he put it to the media. Jeanine Pirro made a mistake. It was vandalism. And he said, we've got cameras, video, eyewitness testimony. Now, he did say, look, I'm not saying she's completely wrong. As he, later said, the contractor did rush the job. In fact, this is what Trump said. Quote, now, I'm not saying I was 100% thrilled with the contractor. But, because he said the contractor was rushing. We wanted to get it open for July 4th, and we got it done. But in addition, there was vandalism. In other words, he's saying, look, yeah, maybe they did botch the job a little bit. They were rushing. Fine. Okay. But you can clearly see them, these vandals, doing damage to the pool. There's no question. So it wasn't just a botched job by the contractor. You see the knives, you see the box cutters, you see them slicing up the sealant. What else do you want? You've got witnesses saying they saw them with box cutters and knives slicing it up. So he says, why now? She holds a press conference. She gets a grand jury indictment. Hearn is facing 10 years in prison for a felony for a malicious destruction of federal property. We're finally going to start holding some people accountable for destroying monuments and memorials. And all of a sudden on Friday, behind Trump's back, she drops the charges. All charges dismissed across the board, not just to Hearn, everybody involved. Now, look, I'm just going to be, brutally honest, and then I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Generally, I don't like hiring from cable TV news. They rarely work out. They just don't. Because it's easy to play a tough guy on TV or a tough gal, in her case, on TV. It's very different to be one in real life. Because you're playing to the cameras. When you got to go to war and you've got to get your hands dirty and you've got to fight the system and the media and the judges, you need an experienced warrior, a prosecutor who's been in the trenches for decades and decades and decades. You don't want someone essentially playing a judge on TV. Now, I agree with her on many issues. I thought she was a very colorful personality on Fox. But the moment I heard, I'm like, I wouldn't have picked her to be my U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. Just like I wouldn't have picked Pam Bondi. To me, people that want a show on TV or basically are TV personalities aren't very good at running and managing an agency or, a prosecutor's office or whatever it may be. They're a talking head, which is fine. But talking heads don't deliver results when you put them in positions of power and influence. Rarely do they work out because they tend to be all talk and no action. But anyway, that's just my opinion. So do I think she choked? Yeah, I think she clearly choked. I think there's no question she choked because there was a lot of blowback on this case and she was probably going to lose and she didn't want to lose in court. Well, you got to set an example. Even if you lose, you set an example. You're going to have to spend money on lawyers. You're going to face the prospect of 10 years in jail. And you're going to go through a court case. And you're going to face a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety that you may end up going to jail. In other words, you want to come and destroy federal property and write disgusting graffiti against Trump. There's going to be some kind of accountability. Win or lose, your life is going to be disrupted. And you're going to be out of a lot of money because you're going to be paying a lot of money to lawyers. So maybe next time, don't do it. But anyway, that's me. I just want to play Trump one more time and then go to the phones. 617-266-6868. This is President Trump saying, look, we now have the military having to watch over the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool because there's so much freaking graffiti and vandalism being done to it by these deranged anti-Trump leftists, the resistance. And he said, look, we should have put up a hell of a lot more cameras. Now they've got cameras everywhere. I mean, everywhere. He goes, had we had the cameras that I wanted, we would have had these people 6 ways to Sunday. Their hand in the pool, clutching the knife, videotaping the actual sealant as they're slicing it. And he said, Jeanine Pirro, let me down and let me down big. Roll cut 5, Mike.
Graffiti all over it. I won't say what was on the sidewalk, but horrible, 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 disgusting stuff. And not only did we fix it, we have military standing there watching it. And if anybody touches it, That was the one mistake with the reflecting pond. They hadn't put up the cameras yet. They had enough up because you see what's happening. But if they would have had them up, we would have had it would have been a lot easier. And I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. Really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella, and people get away with things, and it's a disgrace.
I'm with him. To me, it's the last line. Democrats get away with things, and it's a disgrace. Now, look, I understand what many of you are probably thinking. Jeff, come on, it's the reflecting pool. It's small potatoes in the larger scheme of things. True. I agree. But it's almost a symbol of what's wrong. You catch them in the act, literally with a camera, and you got 15, 20 eyewitnesses, and they still get away with it. Hell, they even drop the charges. So if we can't prosecute simple vandalism to the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, what, we're going to go after Fauci? We're going to go after Comey? We're going to go after Brennan? We're going to go after Clapper? We're going to go after Hillary? We're going to go after, Peter Strzok? We're going to go, who's going to go to jail? And that's the problem. Nobody our side goes to jail. Yes, over nothing. Trumped up, made up crimes. But their side, to this day, has anyone in Black Lives Matter been held accountable for what they did? Has Antifa been accountable for anything they've done? I'm not even talking about the crimes of the deep state. So, look, you want to play a tough guy judge on television, go back to television, play your tough guy judge. But get me a real tough as nails prosecutor who's not afraid to take, yes, even the hard, difficult cases, even the unpopular cases, and see it through to the end. And if you're going to drop the freaking case after holding a big press conference, and they violently, deliberately ripped it up, and we're going to hold them accountable. Enough is enough. No longer on my watch. You should have seen that press conference. If you're going to drop all the cases, dismiss everything, at a bare minimum, give the president a heads up. Don't blindside the guy. 617-266-6868. Forrest on the North Shore. Thanks for holding, Forrest, and welcome.
Good morning, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you, Forrest.
Jeff, let me ask you something. Do you think Jeanine Pirro would allow me to drive up on her front yard and do a couple donuts and then drive away?
No.
I just don't see I just don't see it. Damage is damage. Crimes are crimes. You let people get away with the little thing. They move on up to the big things. I mean, enough is enough. People are just so. There's no accountability. So why should people think that they can't damage things and hurt people and destroy things? I just don't get it anymore. It's 5 years of this.
You're completely right. Forrest, I mean, you're not, like, as I like to say, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. If you damage her property or, her rose garden or whatever, her flower beds, if we came in there and smashed that up, or I think your analogy is brilliant, I go on her property, I do a couple of donuts with my car, I mess up her grass, her lawn, they throw the book at you. And look, those national monuments and memorials, Forrest, they're ours. I mean, we pay for them with our taxpayer dollars. And I don't know, I just find it so strange. To me, a federal statue, it's a symbol of our country. It's part of our heritage. I would never think of destroying a statue or, a reflecting pool or a memorial the stuff that people do now, the sick graffiti, taking hammers, chisels, destroying it, box cutters, knives. No wonder our cities are so ugly and so, full of graffiti and filth and crime and dirt. Look how we treat our national monuments and memorials. If we disrespect that, we're disrespecting ourselves. We spend a lot of, and we should. Honestly, Forrest, you go to some of these European countries, and you know me, I'm a big fan of America, not a big fan of Europe. But I got to say this about the Europeans. They treat their memorials with respect. You touch one of those things, they throw the book at you. Why? Because it's part of our heritage. It's part of our culture. It's taxpayer money. Because we want to live in a beautiful city. We want to look. The Lincoln Memorial is 100 years old. I've seen it. I've been there. I still live in Washington, D.C. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Tourists go to Washington. They go see it. Of course they should. And what Trump did with that reflecting pool, Forrest, mwah, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. The color, everything, the way it reflects off the memorial reflects off the pool. He's trying to say, look, I want a beautiful capital city for a beautiful country. And these animals just show up and they just destroy it. And they laugh and they think it's funny. And you nailed it, Forrest. You see, they don't prosecute for any of this. Destruction of property, graffiti, defacing, you name it. That's why it's out of control. And it's been out of control ever since the summer of love, summer of 2020, after George Floyd and all those riots. And so it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And, I'm sorry, Forrest. You're the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. Do your job. You're supposed to be law and order. Well, crack down. If you've got video footage, and they do, and you have eyewitness testimony, and you do, yeah, okay, maybe the contractor did rush the job. Maybe some of the damage at the bottom of the pool, it's not all vandalism. But Trump's not saying that. Trump is saying, look, it's clear there was vandalism, and they did it. So why am I finding out in the press the next day that you dropped the case? And you're supposed to be this tough gal on TV. Forrest, did she choke, and does she need to go? What say you, my friend?
Absolutely, Jeff. And, people come from all over the world to see our monuments that reflect our country and who we are. And, you don't always have to send people to jail for a conviction, but you got to convict them. Put them on probation for 10 years. Hold something over their head so that they don't do it. I mean, jail is supposed to be, you do it once, you don't go back. Some people love it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, or at a minimum, Forrest, what about this? Just you convict them and hit them with a fine. Whatever, $5,000. I'll tell you, I don't want to pay $5,000, right? A lot of people say, whoa, something, consequences, something. Now, Forrest, you can't make this up. Now, David Hearn, since she's dropped the charges, she dismissed all charges. He's now getting a lawyer. And the media is urging him, egging him on. He's now going to sue the federal government because you arrested me and indicted me, and now you've dropped the charges. My civil right, this guy who's caught on camera slicing up the pool, is now going to sue the federal government, and he's looking for millions in damages. You can't make this up. Forrest, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. You and I are on the same page, my friend. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
Ever since Jeannie Pirro left the five isn't half as good as it used to be. I got to say that. But I can't believe she's done this. I'm so disappointed in her. And you said for her to go back to TV. I don't think anybody's going to want her back because who wouldn't want to listen to her any longer? What say you?
Oh, well, look, Bob, I agree with you as usual. You and I are simpatico. Look, let me tell you, I thought she was very good on the five. I'm going to be honest. I said it years ago. I like her delivery. Reminds me a little bit of my wife, to be honest. I like her fire. I like her passion. I thought she was always well prepped when she came on, whatever hit she did. But it's a lot like Dan Bongino. You have to understand, these are media personalities. And quote unquote personalities. So a lot of it is for show. Now, look, it's fine. She did a good job. She was engaging, entertaining, informative, hard-hitting. But this is not a, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m, Monday to Sunday, or at least Monday to Saturday. And I got to run a staff, and we're just going to have to keep bulldozing opposition and all these hurdles and obstacles and go up against some of the most entrenched, powerful forces in the city and in the world. That's not cable news. Cable news is, you just flap your mouth. That's what this is. And she played a tough gal. Bongino played a tough guy. He was a year as the number 2 man at the FBI. What did he accomplish? Nothing. In fact, under him, we got even less indictments. And then he made it even worse because he covered up and lied about Epstein. He covered up Epstein, and he covered up the lie about Epstein, saying that it was a suicide when it clearly wasn't a suicide. So what I'm saying is, generally, don't take somebody from cable TV. They spend half their day putting makeup on. I'm serious. That's their job. Their job is to put on a quote unquote show. So look, they're not interested in truth. The one thing you have to understand about cable news is they're not interested in truth. What they're interested is drawing an audience for their advertisers. It's all about the ratings. If it meant them running around naked in front of the camera and it got them ratings, they would do it. So you have to understand, just because it's almost like acting in Hollywood. Just because someone plays a tough gal or a tough guy on TV doesn't mean they are one. And so they collect a check, a very good check, and that's it. They live in their beautiful mansions, and they fly all over the world, and they have multiple second homes or third homes, and they have producers, they have a staff. Much of the stuff that's done for them is already written and pre-scripted. Now, look, she did her job well, but to me, this idea that this woman was capable to be U.S. attorney, especially for such a key office like the District of Columbia, and you can just tell, forget the talk. I can hold a press conference every day. It's her actions. What has she done? Can somebody name me one accomplishment? Like significant accomplishment? Has anybody? It's the District of Columbia. That's the swamp. Has she put anybody of serious consequence or power in jail? No. Has she broken any case? No. Again, that's what Trump is saying. He goes like, where are the arrests? And then here is one, high profile, because it's the reflecting pool. Burgum even said it. If you want to read it again, he's like, we gave her the evidence. Instead of her coming to us and getting evidence, we spoon-fed her the evidence. Like, okay, here, I guess you don't want to break your back. Okay, so here's the evidence. Here's 4 minutes of tape. Here's 3 minutes of tape. Here's more tape. They even said we gave her eyewitnesses because her people wouldn't go find them. So we said, okay, look, this person, you see that person? Okay, that person was an eyewitness. That person is now going to contact you. Or can you just call them? Here's the number. So they spoon-fed her the case. And she still dismissed and dropped all charges. It's not a Fox News show. It's not, you got to go to the green room, get your hair done, all of that. Okay, let me ask you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, should President Trump get rid of Jeanine Pirro as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia? Many now are saying yes. Many of his strongest supporters say that, again, she and others have failed us. She can't even make a simple prosecution of vandals of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool stick. And if she's not competent or not up to the job or whatever, doesn't have the courage for the job or whatever it may be, then get somebody who will. And I just want to throw this out there. Am I the only one? I know Trump is very frustrated as well, but am I the only one who's getting increasingly frustrated? How come nobody on the Democrat side for actual crimes? I mean, like in this case, this is, vandalism, destruction of federal property, malicious destruction of federal property. No one ever goes to jail. No one ever is convicted. No one ever is held accountable. As Forrest said, you don't have to even send him to jail, but just put it on their criminal record, maybe fine them. Something. Now, I'm talking about, this is vandalism. I'm not talking about, treason and the deep state abuse of power that we have now clearly unmasked and exposed. And yet no one goes to prison. No one. And so what is going on? Are the Republicans, are they being bullied? Are they being intimidated? Are they afraid? Why won't, say what you want about the Democrats. They put innocent people in jail, but they go after their opponents. They don't hold back. Hell, they want to put Trump in jail for 500 years over nothing. He's an innocent man. I'm not talking about going after innocent people. I'm talking about going people who are, after people who are guilty of sin. And with Republicans, for whatever reason, they just don't want to do it. And the question is, why? Why? Are they being threatened? Are they being bought off? Do they just not have the stomach or the will for the fight? There's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong. Agree, disagree. Rob in North Andover. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Rob?
Disgusted. It's totally disgusted.
No,
This is just...
Rob, can you get off speaker because we can barely hear you, my friend? No, I hear you. I'm disgusted as well. Either you laugh or you cry, so I'd rather laugh. But, I mean, it's... I don't know what to say. Really, I don't know what to say. It's like, is somebody now going to have to jump the fence at the White House, really be caught on camera, spraying F Trump or, 8647 or, death to President Trump and literally spray it on the White House and caught on camera. And you see their face, their body, hell, even audio where they said, my name is, Joe Smith, and I'm committing an act of violence because I hate Donald J. Trump. I have Trump derangement syndrome. F you, Trump. Shh. And then pulls out a box cutter or a knife and starts slashing up the White House. And even then, we're going to drop the charges. No, really, it's getting to that point, Rob, where they can do anything if you're a Democrat and nothing happens. But I digress. Go ahead, Rob.
Just give me 60 seconds. Pirro out. And to be honest with you, and it's like chewing glass. Trump out. I am and you know what? You hit the nail on the head. Ratings. It's all about ratings. This whole thing's about ratings. But let's get back to Trump with this. I'm going to finish Iran in 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're months. I'm going to vote for him again. Pirro was I thought she'd be the best. She is just useless. And November, forget it, buddy. It's all over in November. This whole thing is over. And you know what? I could care less anymore. I used to worry about it. X, Y, and Z. You know what? Let this whole thing crash because they're all useless. I'm so sick and tired of it. I was the biggest Trump supporter in the world. This is absolutely outrageous.
Well, I have to say, Rob, and the way she blindsided him. I mean, I know you're upset at Trump with the war and other things, but the way she just blindsided him, ambushed him like this. Remember, she's the one that, she made such a circus, and she's going to set an example, and these people are going to go to jail. Okay, Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in the Pittsburgh area, messaged me, and he said, Jeff, the reason why Jeanine Pirro eventually dropped the case is because the media has been making such a big issue about the reflecting pool for months. And this POS should be indicted and go to jail. I agree. Well, they had indicted him. They had a grand jury indict him on a felony, destruction of federal property. And she dropped the case, just completely dropped all charges. So again, I think Trump is right. She caved. I think there's no question she caved. Now I want to get this. This is from Jack on Messenger, and he makes a very interesting point. Jeff, that's it. Judge Jeanine is no more than a Judge Judy. She is more about showing her face on TV than actually doing her job. Bingo. And that's really what she was to me. Now, I know she had a previous career. I understand she was an actual judge, and I understand she has experience in the past as a prosecutor. But that was a long time ago. She was basically in the media for a very, very long time. She's I believe in her 70s. And so she's, she really became a media personality, and which is fine. I mean, as I said, I liked her. I liked her stuff. I thought she was funny, forceful. I agreed with her on many issues. But think of Judge Judy. And by the way, I still watch, not religiously, but occasionally I will watch Judge Judy. They're usually, reruns of 10, 15, 20 years ago. But, and I agree with her. I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but like on 99% of her decisions, I agree with her. But it's TV. It's entertainment. I mean, I know the cases are real, but I mean, essentially, she's playing to the gallery, as they say, to the audience. So, she's a bit funny, and she does witticisms, and she tries to make the case more dramatic than what it really is to keep it as entertaining and compelling as possible. But my point is, if I said to you, well, we're going to grab Judge Judy and we're going to make her the U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, or, I don't know, the Southern District of New York, you would say, whoa, hey, just because she plays a judge on TV and, does a good TV show, it doesn't mean she's capable of actually running, an office with multiple prosecutors and staff and deliver concrete results. And that's what I'm trying to say. Being a talking head, being a personality on television, it's not the same as being someone who, A, can fight the courts, can fight the media, can fight the Democrats, and above all, have the tenacity, the ability, the willingness, and a lot of it is you're getting death threats. You're spending long hours away from your family and your children and your grandchildren, but you're under tremendous pressure if you try to put powerful Democrats in jail. Or in this case, if you go after a 3-time Olympian who no one ever heard of, who happens to be this rabid anti-Trumper, but now has become a cause celeb for the media. So now you're up against the entire liberal media. Well, and you get a lot of hate mail and a lot of death threats. Well, the easier, the path of least resistance is just drop the case. And that's what we see again and again and again and again. It's easy to do what's quote unquote popular. It's very hard to do the right thing. And that's the problem. We don't have enough people in government doing the right thing, which is to pursue the truth and pursue justice and let the chips fall where they may. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Fred in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Fred, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. How are you? Hey, listen, let me get all this out, and I totally agree with you. So I agree they should be prosecuted. I'm tired of the double standards. It's absolutely ridiculous. In your opening monologue, you mentioned that Pirro said that other spots of the reflecting pool were coming apart as well. So they can't just pin it on vandalism. I think that's wrong because it was vandalism. And here's my theory on this. Once the vandalism took place, what happens to a cut liner is water starts to infiltrate underneath, and the rest of the pool, of course, is going to come apart. So that's not an excuse not to prosecute. And I think that was wrong, and I think she's a coward. In my opinion, the original liner should have been either an epoxy paint or a glued liner. So there's my theory. And again, I am sick and tired of the fact that if I were to do something, I would be prosecuted and put in jail for even more minor things than what took place. But all these other people can do whatever they want, and it's got to stop.
Fred, I can't address your second. I mean, you're obviously an expert. You really know what you're talking about in terms of sealants and coating and lining. I'm not an expert on that. So I know you're right, but I'm just saying I can't speak to your second point. Your first point is 1,000% correct. And that's Trump's argument. It's Doug Burgum's argument. It's the administration's argument because they had experts lined up exactly to your point saying, well, yeah, but you don't understand something. Once you start cutting the lining at the bottom, it messes up the lining in other parts of the pool. That's the point. Now, maybe, yeah, okay, it wasn't the best, construction or the contractor maybe botched it. Fine. But the vandalism is still the vandalism is the vandalism. And then the vandalism causes even more damage. So it's exactly to your point. And look, Fred, let's, as the Germans would say, let's put our cards on the table. All right. Everybody knows you protest in front of Michelle Wu's house. She called the police. Everybody got arrested. And now they've passed a law that you can't protest in front of her house. But you get shot in the head in Dorchester, nobody gives a damn. You got people shooting up all over Boston, even now on Newbury Street, which used to be the big, ritzy, swanky fashion district. You've got drug addicts now everywhere, crime everywhere, muggings, people being assaulted, carjackings. Never mind just seeing these zombies. I mean, I don't know if they're on fentanyl or heroin. It's sad. And they're just wandering the streets. And by the way, committing crime after crime. They're burglarizing, shoplifting. It's almost like you can't even go to Newbury Street anymore. Nothing happens. But if you touch one of them, they throw the book at you. And if a damage was done to Janine Pirro's home, if you or I, not that we would ever do it, but if you or I went with a box cutter or a knife, and you know what? We cut up her pool in the back, her underground pool in the back. I'm telling you, you and I are going to jail. Or at a bare minimum, we're going to get convicted. We're going to have a criminal record, and we're either going to do community service or pay a fine. In other words, they're not going to say, well, I think maybe the contractor botched the job. I don't know. Was it the contractor or was it Fred in New Hampshire or, Jeff Kuhner in Massachusetts? I don't know. I'm not sure. So if this was her or her home or her car that had been vandalized, my friend, get yourself a damn good lawyer because you or I or whoever, we'd be in deep trouble. So it's the fact now, it's clearly two-tier justice. It's one for the political class, for the swamp, for the well-connected, and there's another one for the rest of us. And we're the ones who pay the salaries for all of these, for the political class, for these swamp creatures. So they're supposed to work for us, and instead they're living off of our money. And when we ask them to just do their job and enforce the law, they only enforce it to punish us, but never if it's, never if it's against, a Democrat or somebody that's politically well connected. Honestly, Fred, it's disgusting. Anyway, final word to you. Am I wrong, Fred?
Jeff, you're 100% correct. And this is why, it's depressing when I think about all of what took place and what's taking place. And I'm sick of the swamp. I'm tired of Michelle Wu. I'm tired of everything being the way it is. But I have faith, and I'm not going to give up.
Oh, I agree with you. You can't give up. You should never give up. Okay, I want to go to Billy in Medford. But just before I do, very, very quick. This was maybe, I can't remember now. It was definitely during Biden's term. So I would say maybe 3 years ago. Don't quote me on that, but it was about 3-ish years ago where we had then, Judge Janine, as she was known, Janine Pirro. She was hawking a book. And so we had her on. Maybe many of you will remember it. And I interviewed her. And let me be brutally honest with you. I asked her if the election was stolen, whether Joe Biden had stolen the election from Trump. She refused to answer the question. In fact, she was panicked that I even dared to ask the question, because you could tell her corporate paymasters at Fox, it was verboten, forbidden, to even mention the stolen election. So then I pushed. I said, well, should Biden be impeached over the open border and all the illegal immigration? You could tell, I don't know, did I clear that with corporate? And so I asked her multiple questions that she refused to give an answer to. And then she went on about her book. And of course, she was selling the book and she had her talking points. But what struck me about her was I thought she was quite superficial. When she wasn't prepped, when she didn't have her talking points in front of her, when everything wasn't written out for her, there really wasn't much there. And that's the case for most people on TV. Very shallow, hollow on the inside, intellectually not very deep, and they have to toe the corporate line. And that's one of the reasons why I will never, ever do corporate media. Yeah, you make phenomenal money, but you end up selling your soul. To the point where, someone asks you, remember, this was the Biden years. Well, was he illegitimate or was he not illegitimate? Had he stolen the election? Had he not stolen the election? Now, if you can't give an honest answer to that fundamental question, I don't know how you can look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, you're raking in the checks, but you've basically sold your soul. So, and I'm not singling her out. That's the problem with most people, whether it's CNN, MS Now, Newsmax, Fox News. It doesn't matter. It's corporate media. And they pay well, but they own you. And once they own you, you've lost your independence. And to me, in some ways, you've lost your humanity. But that's me. So when I had her on, I wasn't that impressed with her. Now, again, she's effective. She's good. I thought she did a good job, on the 5 and other areas. But I'm like, nah, she's very thin. She's very thin. It has to be scripted for her. She has to practice it ahead of time. It's, basically she's got 5 minutes in her. But you push her on a range of issues and you can tell, will I get in trouble? That's the only thing that's going through her brain. Will I get in trouble with upper management? Should I say this? Should I not say this? I don't know. I need clearance. Where's my editor? Where's my producer? And that's corporate media in a nutshell. You basically read what they put in front of you. Billy in Medford. Thanks for holding, Billy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Billy.
Long time, first time caller.
Welcome,
Thank
welcome,
you for having
Billy.
me.
My pleasure.
You know, I've been listening to you for a while now, and you and your callers, most of them, I agree with everything they said. I came on to say what they wanted to say, and, you know, just to word it a little differently, I think I'm a strong conservative. I think conservatives have just lost their courage. They're just afraid of getting in trouble anymore and speaking out. You know, and Judge Pirro, she choked. She makes me sick. Okay? And I say that because I'm not in a leadership position. I don't want to be in a leadership position. Okay? I don't have the courage either. But we need to find the people who have the courage to just speak their mind. We're just afraid. And that's the one thing that the left has. They're not afraid. As stupid as they are, they're not afraid of it. They're actually proud of it. And common sense just can't win when it comes to that. I think I'm reminded of a story years ago. My dad was a university security officer. My uncle was a cop. And long story short, they were having a problem with break-ins in their locker room. My dad happened to catch the guy, red-handed, had the tools in his bag and everything. And when the police showed up, they let him go. They said, well, he's right. We don't have a sign that says no trespass. And my uncle, the cop, was screaming, saying, so what? Bust his chop. Make him go to court and jail and answer all the questions that way. Don't just let him laugh and walk away. But that's what we've done over the past 30 years. We just have no courage anymore. And I don't know how to get it back.
Well, it starts one at a time. And by the way, Billy, this is a phenomenal call. I can't believe it's your first time calling. This is such a profound truth. You are so right. It's not even funny. I think you put your finger really right on it. If you look at what's happening in Europe, in the West, where's the courage? It's gone. If you look among conservatives here, I mean, there are some still very, strong patriotic conservatives, who still have their cojones. They have courage. But you're right. We're dwindling, and it's less and less and less. And I agree with you. It's like we've lost our nerve. We've lost our self-belief. We've lost our convictions. And it's almost like men have become women. They become so feminized. To me, I find women now more courageous than men, honestly. And, I look at okay, so what's going to happen if you were, if you try to put David Hearn in prison and you go ahead with the court case? What's going to happen? What, CNN's going to hate you more? What, the big media is going to attack you even more? They already hate your guts. So what, you're going to get more death threats? You're already getting death threats. What's the problem? But you're right, Billy. It's just people are afraid. They've lost their nerve. They've lost their courage. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what the reason is. But I think you're completely correct. And to me, look, I look back. I mean, I think of the World War I generation, the World War II generation. People who went through the Great Depression, fought in World War II. My father, my grandfather, they always spoke out. They always, all they were was courage. And so many people I grew up with, they always would speak their mind. They were never afraid. If a criminal broke into their house, they would defend their family to the death. They would always, they never back down. I think what's also happened, Billy, is, and you may agree or disagree with me on this, but it's like we become too spoiled. Our founding fathers warned us about this. They said, you watch. They said, we're creating this republic and it's going to work. We know history. We've seen this. And it's going to become wealthy and it's going to become prosperous. And it's become prosperous. They called it a commercial civilization. That was a term they used, meaning prosperity. And they said, it's going to be great. And you're going to see many Americans are going to prosper. But the one drawback is, and they saw it in other republics throughout history, they go, it makes you soft. After a while, you become too prosperous, too much luxury. Things become too easy. So you become too soft and you begin to lose the courage, the toughness, the self-reliance that made the republic so prosperous to begin with. You know, as they put it, hard men create a republic, and republic creates prosperity. But then prosperity creates soft men. And that's, they say, is the death knell for republics. And I think, to be honest, Billy, I think we're too comfortable. We're too spoiled. Everything has come to us too easy compared to our parents and our grandparents. And I think you're right. I think it's damaged our character. Because I constantly hear this argument. And I understand. Look, I got a family to feed. I got to put food on the table. You got to put food on the table. We have bills to pay. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, it'll hurt my career. Well, it may cost you my job. Well, you know, I got to be careful. I have a lot to lose, Jeff. So I'll just try to keep my head down and just try to make my way. The left, they don't think like that. They attack, 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 as you put it, no matter how freaking crazy and insane they are. They don't stop. And they're relentless, and they always speak their mind. And they got courage. Look, they're already now. They're 100 days out from the midterms. Forget impeaching Trump. They're going to put him in jail. They're already saying it. No. We're going to impeach, we're going to convict, and then we're putting him in jail. We're going to put his family in jail. I mean, they want his head on a platter. Our side can't even get some clown that vandalizes a freaking reflecting pool. We can't even on camera. And too much conflict. The media is going to scorch me too much. So we can't even put a lousy vandal behind bars. But they're going to go after the leader of the free world, not just impeach, topple him from power, and then either, hang him or put him in prison. And his entire family. You tell me, Billy, who's going to win this battle? Final word to you, my friend.
You're absolutely right. And you got to remember a couple of things. I'm not very courageous either. So that said, when I do have words with the liberal, I have to remind them that their opinion is of zero value to me. Okay? Because they have zero value to me. They have no value. And the other thing to remember is Trump said it a long time ago. He said, it's not me that they're after, it's you. And I'm just in the way. And just like you said, they want to put him and his family in jail. They're going to put his family in jail, too, because they have his value. And once they get past that, we're done. We're done. So if we don't stop pushing back and stop being afraid of all these social justice wimps, we're going to lose. And in my opinion, our forefathers and even our generation from World War II, they came back, they went to work, they built a great country. We let them down by not speaking up and pushing these little scumbags aside. Sorry for my language.
No need to apologize. Billy, don't be a stranger. Call again. Great call. 617, no truer words were spoken. He spoke the truth. And which, by the way, takes courage to speak the truth. 617-266-6868. Look, just very quick. Trump, no truer words were ever spoken. When Trump said, no, I mean, sure, they're after me, of course. I mean, they're trying to put me in jail and impeach me and destroy me and my family. But they're not really after me. I'm not the ultimate target. They're after you. I'm just in the way. And I am telling you, once they're done with Trump, they're coming for us. And now they're not even hiding it. They're not even hiding it. Jake in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Jeff, I got to say, bingo. The past 60 seconds, you said the entire problem with our society. We've become too soft. And that's the whole purpose of my call, Jeff, because I'm 10 years older than you. I was born in the 50s. My father was a World War II veteran. I tried to join the Air Force when I was a kid, but my feet and my eyesight would not allow me to do it. But even the people of my generation are tougher than the kids who are in their 20s and 30s today. They've had it too easy with cell phones, with computers, with everything given to them, because the generation today that bought houses 40 years ago, well, their houses are worth $600,000, $700,000. They're giving the money to the kids. The kids have faced nothing tough for the most part in this society. Nothing tough. You see young people walking around with fat stomachs, having too many cell phones, too many appliances that are making them soft. There are no real leaders anymore, Jeff. You know, you try to lead from what you can do on your talk show. You try and you do a great job, but that's only a small cog in the wheel. Donald Trump tries to do his best job. We can't throw people under the bus like Jeanine Pirro. We haven't heard her side of the story, Jeff. I met her once in New York City when I was working in New York City. As I told you years ago, I was a good friend of Curtis Leroy. He introduced me to Jeanine Pirro. She was a tough judge. You know, people who saw her in court said she doesn't take prisoners. She puts prisoners in jail. She puts people in jail when she was a judge. I don't know what's happened to her. I don't know her side of the story. I'm sure we will see her side of the story, and that's one of the criticisms of our president. Our president insults people in public. Well, when you insult the networks in public, when you incite Caitlin Collins and you insult those people on CNN in public and call them crooks or corrupt, what are they going to do? They're going to fight back twice as hard to try to put you down. You can't insult people in public. You insult them in private. You give them a phone call and say, what's going on with you? We have a major problem of poison in this country. You're seeing it play out in Michigan and all these other states that are having primaries tonight. You see these communists running, and this is an influx from out of this country. A lot of these people are supported by people like George Soros. They're putting up the money for these communists. In 1960, Khrushchev said, "We will bury you from within." Now, his country hasn't buried us. Russia has not buried us. But let me tell you who's burying us. People like from within. The TV commentators, George Soros is burying us. He's paying for the entire wave of anti-Americanism in this country. Other people, such as Muslims, are coming in and burying us, and we're kowtowing to them. We have nobody like George Patton, nobody like Dwight Eisenhower or Douglas MacArthur. The only one I see, there's two people that are leaders, Trump, and I have criticism of him. He's too exposed. He's too exposed, saying the same thing over and over again on television. And the other leader I think would make a great president, Jeff, is Ron DeSantis. Unfortunately, he doesn't have what we call charisma, which I could care less because he's a leader. And I think he'd be a better president than either J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. So we have a poison now. Who's the leader? Right now, I'm too old to get out there and too handicapped. I can't get out there and lead anybody right now because of my health. Jeff, we need a leader, a national leader. Curtis Leroy started the Guardian Angels in New York City and did a tremendous job for 30 years. We have nobody on the national front that's picking up the mantle to do this. Trump can't do it all by himself. He just can't. But there's not enough people picking up this leadership mantle. And you hit it bingo with too soft. When you're too soft, you lose your country, you lose your integrity, and that's what most of these people on television are doing. They're losing their integrity if they had any at all. But I will say one thing, Jeff. I know you have a problem with Fox News. Where would we be without Fox News? At least there are enough people like Hannity on that station that tells the truth, that keeps us aware of what's going on. Without Fox News, we would have been dead 10 years ago. We would have been taken over 10 years ago. And so I want to congratulate you for hitting the nail on the head.
Well, thank you, Jake. No, Jake, I agree with you. And listen, thank you. We are too soft. No, my problem with Fox is, look, they have some good people on. I think they do some good work occasionally. But this is the problem with Fox. Fox polices the right. That's what they do. That's their job. They're sort of like the, quote, gatekeepers. And so what Fox News did, I'll just give you an example. They marginalize anybody who questioned the stolen election of 2020. Fox has a very destructive, they have a very destructive impulse to them. I'm not saying they don't have people that do excellent work. Yes. But when you start policing speech, when you start censoring dissenting views, as Fox News did, then I'm sorry, you're part of the problem. You're part of the corrupt corporate media. Now, are they better than CNN or MS Now? Yes. Are they better than the network news? Yes. But I honestly think we can do a hell of a lot better. I'm sorry. I think a cable news network can handle whether the 2020 election was stolen, because it obviously was. Furthermore, to me, I don't want to get sidetracked, but the way Fox News propped up Fauci during the entire so-called pandemic, I'll never forget it. You know, they were parroting so much of his lies and propaganda. In fact, if you talk to people at Fox, they'll say the way management behaved was appalling. They forced the vaccine mandate on pretty much everybody at Fox, except a few hosts who were doing their show away from the office. But if you actually had to come into the office, staffers, producers, editors, whatever, you had to take that jab. It was the jab or your job. And there were many, especially women, because there's a lot of women that work in media. They're just very good at it. They're great at multitasking. There were a lot of young women who were told, I don't care if you want to get pregnant, because many of them said, hey, whoa. We don't know the effect of this on fertility. There's no tests whatsoever. And they said, we don't care. You want to work at Fox? You want to continue to feed your family? You better take the jab. And there were many, many young female professionals at Fox who took the jab, and now they can't get pregnant. I'm just giving you an example. You know, who pushed the lie about social distancing? Fox did. I mean, others did as well, obviously. But they didn't question it. They didn't question the masks. They didn't question the vaccine mandates. They didn't they questioned nothing. They had Fauci on over and over and over, and they kept kissing his ring. By the way, as did Mark Levin. Mark Levin had a whole show with Chicken Little on right in front of him, and he just kept kissing his ring. Why? Because corporate ordered him to kiss his ring. So I'm not singling the guy out. I'm just saying, no, I'm sorry. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Sharon on Messenger. Jeff, for all of Fox News' faults, they have helped raise awareness about what is happening in Massachusetts. They have exposed Healy and Michelle Wu's destructive decisions on several occasions. We have no local media to expose the horrible things being passed in darkness on Beacon Hill. So we need all the help that we can get. Sharon, that is a very good point. That is a very good point. And it's true. Fox does do some good reporting on Massachusetts because the local media is pathetic. I mean, honestly, pathetic. The Boston Herald, the Boston Globe, I don't care. Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 25. I can go right across the board. WGBH, it doesn't matter. It's the local media in this state is, honestly, it's a disgrace. So you're right. We do need all the help that we can get. 617-266-6868. Joe in Abington. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Sorry you caught me in the middle of breakfast here. Just a couple of quick points.
Yes.
Trump, he claims all the time that he has evidence, and Doug Burgum said they have evidence, and Janine Pirro charged the guy based on that fact. Then she did an investigation, which actually is asked backwards, because you really have to do the investigation
That's
and
right.
then charge.
That's right.
But if you read her filing, she says Burgum lied to her. She says that they drained the pool, and then they went in and they looked at the line. There was no cuts. then she said that the witnesses didn't say what they said they were going to say, and they said there was no video. So Trump can say, just like with the election, Trump can say it was stolen, and I want to believe that, but he sent 220 federal agents to Georgia. They took every ballot and looked at it. They took Arizona and took it apart, every ballot. And so every person was matched to a name. And they found a couple more votes for Biden in Arizona. But if they could actually, because that's been 6 years, if they could actually provide some evidence for this stuff, fine. But saying you have evidence is not the same as providing evidence. So when there's no consequences for Trump or Burgum misrepresenting anything. But there is consequences for an officer of the court misrepresenting something. So she can't go. She made the charges, and she presented it to a grand jury based on those facts. Then when they did the investigation, there was no facts. Then when Trump sent 220 agents to Georgia, when they took up all those ballots in Arizona, there was no evidence. So I get it.
Joe, look, I'll be honest with you. I think I've discussed the evidence. And I'm not depending on anything Trump gave or didn't give me. I've looked at the 2020 election 6 ways to Sunday, and the level of fraud was massive. It was clearly a stolen election. There's no question in my view it was a stolen election. But that's another issue for another time. Let's stick to Judge Jeanine. So let's just buy Judge Jeanine's story. Let's just accept now everything that she says. That they drained the pool, they went into the pool. No, they found no evidence of people with knives or box cutters having cut anything, and that somehow the witnesses were not saying to her later what they claimed initially, and that Doug Burgum has lied to her, and Trump has lied to her, and everybody has lied to her. And so she's not going to go to court and allegedly perpetrate a fraud. Okay, let's just take it all the way. Then why hold a press conference? I'm sorry, it's pathetic. Trump didn't hold a press conference. She did. She held a very high-profile press conference in which she said that David Hearn was guilty of sin and that they had him dead to rights and that she was going to put him away for 10 years. That, quote, he had violently and deliberately ripped up and damaged the reflecting pool. And furthermore, she went to a grand jury and said that she had evidence and presented the evidence there to get an indictment. Now she's claiming, well, I did an investigation. Well, I'm telling you right now, if I'm the president, I fire her on the spot. To me, if I'm her, I would stick to I choked, because then you can throw yourself on the mercy of the president and say, well, I made a mistake, or I'm flawed, or I'm weak, or I lost my nerve, or I blinked, or whatever. But you go to this story now that she's claiming. Well, I'm going to say then, what kind of an attorney are you? What kind of a prosecutor are you? You mean to tell me you hold this massive, high-profile press conference and put my administration and the reputation of my Department of Justice on the line? Let me ask all of you, do you feel that, let's just for a second, let me throw another log on the fire. Obviously, I want to continue to take calls on the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, whether you think vandalism was done or not done, and whether Jeanine Pirro now should be fired as the U.S. Attorney for D.C. Trump is now seriously considering ousting her after she dropped the charges against every single alleged vandal. Now, let me throw this log very quick. Do you feel that crime in general is no longer being punished? And I don't just mean graffiti, vandalism, defacing or destroying or degrading memorials, monuments, statues, but just in general, whether it's shoplifting, whether it's robbery, carjackings, assault, muggings, honestly, even, drug dealing, murder, rape. You can go, up the ladder in terms of seriousness of crimes and charges. do you feel that overall we become so much more lax and permissive and accepting, if you want to say, quote, tolerant, unquote, of crime and criminals, especially in blue states? I mean, in the country as a whole, but especially in blue states, blue cities, blue jurisdictions. I can tell you, to me, it's obvious that the Democrats openly favor and side with criminals. It's almost like they see themselves as their advocates. And, you know, you take Boston. I wouldn't go to Boston at night anymore. You want to know the truth? I wouldn't. I mentioned Newbury Street. And for those of you that, because we have, you know, a big audience around the country, Newbury Street is one of the fanciest areas in Boston. It's known for incredible shops, cafes, restaurants, fashion, a lot of well-dressed people. People with money are often seen on Newbury Street. It has been transformed in the last, say, 4, 5, 6 years. Crime is through the roof. Stores are often vandalized, robberies, carjackings, drug addicts everywhere. They're shooting up right there on the sidewalk. They're like zombies. It's like the Walking Dead. You see them passed out, forgive me, urinating, defecating on the streets. And, you know, this is supposed to be one of the high-end fashionable areas, you know, of Boston, that people, frankly, from around the country, around the world, when they visit, say, hey, let's go to that area. You know, let's go to Newbury and that whole area, because you're going to get some, really, you can buy stuff from Italy, from France, in terms of the latest fashion. And now, you go in the middle of the day, I guess you're going to be fine. But man, you go after dark. You know, so what I'm saying is, you look at so many of our big cities, whether it's Boston, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, I'm just stating a fact, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, they're becoming almost like third world wastelands where, you know, the criminals are everywhere. You've got apartments abandoned, dilapidated, drug addicts everywhere, drugs, filth everywhere. It wasn't always the case. Those used to be very livable cities with working middle-class neighborhoods, a lot of police on the beat. I'm not saying there wasn't crime, but it was managed. It was tolerable. Now, many of those cities, they're no-go zones. And what you're seeing is now flight out of those cities. And it's not just people that are leaving. Businesses are leaving. Investment is leaving. Taxpayers are leaving. And this has been a conscious choice by the Democrats, Democrat mayors in particular, to not prosecute many crimes, you know, like here in Boston. Basically, look, you can rob a place, go to a local CVS or a pharmacy or a 7-Eleven, and as long as you don't steal more than $1,000, they're pretty much not going to prosecute you. So what do you think is going to happen? Well, you're going to see more burglaries, more shoplifting, more crimes, because the word is out on the street, no one's going to prosecute. You do low-level drug dealing, no one's going to prosecute. So, you know, you just go on and on. So crime begets more crime. And then before you know it, you're living in a third world hellhole. And that's what many of American modern cities are now beginning to resemble. And the Democrats don't want to fix it because everyone in those cities votes for them. And it's the rest of the population that live, people like me that live in suburbs or exurbs. Well, we're fleeing and we want nothing to do with the place. But overall, we're losing our will, our desire, our courage to stand up to this criminal class that is now clearly protected by Democrats. And to bring it full circle, you can stand there and be caught on camera. And that's the thing. I mean, Trump released the videos. I don't know what Jeanine Pirro is saying. There's no evidence. You know, we drained the pool. We looked at the pool. Well, did you look at the guys with the box cutters and the knives? Because they're right there on camera. And do you see them putting their hands into the water? And do you see them digging away at the lining? Because it's caught on camera. Like, it's there. I mean, my eyes aren't lying. So, no, that doesn't count for anything? No, I guess not. So, you can vandalize memorials. You can destroy and defecate and desecrate, desecrate statues. And nothing happens. Especially if you're a Democrat. And the media backs you. So you can be Black Lives Matter and shoot innocent civilians. You can maim and blind police officers. You can torch entire neighborhoods to the ground. To the ground. Cities to the ground. You can burn police stations. Torch it. Administrative buildings. Courts. Literally, courthouses. Nothing will happen to you if you're BLM or Antifa. If you're the shock troops of the Democratic Party, no problem. But like I said earlier, if you're a 70-year-old grandma and you're on the steps of the Capitol on January 6th, or God forbid, you know, you're that poor woman that went in, needed a bathroom break, and the police officer said, yeah, go right in there. And then she said, thank you, officer, and literally took a selfie with him and said, thank you, and left. They hunted her down in Alaska with a SWAT team and sent her to prison for 10 years for being a quote-unquote insurrectionist until Trump, thank the Lord, pardoned her and so many other J6ers. You see, that's how Democrats roll. Steve Bannon is in contempt of Congress. He goes to jail. Peter Navarro is in quote-unquote contempt of Congress. He goes to jail. Fauci, who kills countless people and violates our civil liberties and is the greatest American mass murderer in history, is going to be held in contempt of Congress any day now. And the media is saying, come on, let bygones be bygones. No, so what? It's contempt of Congress. And so what's the problem? You see, Democrats put Republicans and conservatives in jail on nothing. Republicans don't put Democrats in prison even when they're guilty as sin. Even when they're caught on camera vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. And then you've got Jeanine Pirro now doing her cover my, CYA, cover your rear end. I was given false information. It's not my fault. Lady, you're the prosecutor. You held the press conference. You said you had the goods. You got the indictment. And now you're telling me you never had the evidence? If that's your story, fire her ass now. Because this woman then is obviously, by the way, that's prosecutorial misconduct. So that, to me, that's, blatant incompetence. So I don't care. Take door 1 or take door 2. Either you choked or you can't do your job and you don't know how to do your job. Okay, let's go to Brian in Norwell. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Brian.
So, I'm a military scientist, and so I have a different view on most things. And evil can only prevail or spread or basically go into different things if good people do nothing. And the thing is, this is why the Democrats punish small things, because it is pretty simple. Okay, kill it before it grows. They do not want dissension, so they will do anything to punish us, to make us have no balls, okay? That's the thing. We cannot allow this to happen, okay? We have to fight. Forget about going, oh, no, Trump's not doing this or that or anything. Listen, when Biden was president, how much punishment did we take? And you're thinking about not going out to the polls and vote? Are you seriously stupid? Okay? People, we must go out in mass and vote. We need to vote these people out because they're not misunderstood. They're evil, okay? And evil needs to be rooted out and has to be put up by the roots, okay? You cannot let it fester. You cannot even let it get a foothold in it, because if it does, it will spread like fire and it'll burn everything down. And I don't understand why people don't understand this and why they're going, well, Trump's not doing everything I want. So what? Okay, he's doing better than Biden. And when they get into power, okay, if you think it was bad under Biden, it's going to be worse under them. They're going to make sure that you're punished. Doesn't matter if you did anything wrong or not, okay? The Pravda, as Pravda said, okay, we'll find the crime and then we'll do the person, okay? Pretty simple. I mean, I don't get it. Yeah.
Well,
why?
Brian, look, you're right. And I think what's going to happen is tonight are big primaries in Michigan, the Democratic primary in particular. All eyes are going to be on that primary. And it's going to be on Abdel El Said. He is a communist. He's in fact an Islamo-communist in the mold of Mamdani. He's up against a far left progressive, a white woman. And by all the polls, it looks like he's going to win. He is pro-Sharia law. He is, as I said, he's an avowed communist. He wants to nationalize almost every industry in the United States, confiscate people's private property. He wants to abolish the police, abolish prisons, abolish ICE, completely get rid of the border. He is a virulent anti-Semite. He is a Jew hater to the core. And as I said, he's pro-Sharia. Now, it's going to be a massive victory for the Democratic Socialists of America if he wins. And he will be their nominee going into November. And so what we're now going to face, as you see these primaries now starting to take place, you're now going to see the communists are rising. As Trump said, this primary in Michigan between these two Democrats, it's really between a communist and a socialist. And the socialist now is no longer left-wing enough for the base of the Democratic Party. Now, this is Michigan. Okay, this is, we think of Michigan, we think of Detroit, Ford, General Motors. What you got to start thinking now is in Dearborn, Michigan, just the last, 4 or 5 days ago, Dearborn, Michigan opened up, it's now officially open, the largest mosque in the entire United States. You got to see pictures of it. It is massive. It rivals anything you see in Europe, and they have massive mosques now in Europe or anywhere in the Middle East or North Africa. It is a mother mosque. And the parking lot, that's the thing that there's got to be at least 1,000 spots minimum. I've never seen such a parking lot this big. And, the story was it was packed. It was packed. The parking lot, you couldn't find a parking space. And what you see an army of American Muslims who live in the greater Dearborn area, the greater Dearborn region. And you see the men dressed in the traditional Muslim garb. I mean, I don't know if they're Pakistani or from Saudi Arabia. I don't know where they are, but, almost like a dress, the way they wear. And the women are all either in hijabs or you see many of them in burqas, head to toe, completely covered with just slits where their eyes are. And this is in the United States of America. And I don't mean just one or two. Or, 2 here, 3 here. I'm talking there's thousands of them. It's like an army. And they're heading into the mosque to pray. And by the way, the mosque is segregated. Men in one section, women in the other. Okay, but let that go. That's Abdul El Said's army. That's who's going to come out voting for El Said. So what I'm saying is, you may think you want to stay at home, and I understand, maybe, for many of you, Jeff, Trump has let me down on some issues. I get it. And his people are not delivering. And when you see something like Jeanine Pirro not even going after a simple vandalism case, after she's the one that hypes it and, makes a big deal in a press conference and goes to a grand jury and claims there's evidence up the wazoo and now says there isn't evidence. Anyway, so when you see this, you get demoralized. I get you. But I'm telling you, I said, Grace and I literally had that conversation last night for dinner. She says, Trump's next 2.5 years, she says, it seems to me that he's just getting bogged down by all these issues. I said, listen, forget the next 2.5 years. You wait till November. And when November comes, it's going to be impeachment after impeachment. They're going to defund everything. They want to reopen the border. They're already talking what they see in Spain. They want to replicate here. It was, what was it? 7/11? What was it when the Muslims invaded Spain? And it took until 1492 for the Spaniards, the Catholic Spaniards, to push the Muslims out of Spain. And now they're pouring in. There's 60,000 military-aged men in Ceuta, as the city is called. They overran it like it was nothing. And you've got El Said saying, that's exactly what we want here in America. And that's what Mamdani is saying. That's what Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Bernie, that's what they want for the United States. So I'm telling you, you don't have to wait long if you want real problems. You want to really see this country now, the boot to the throat. Just wait until November if the Democrats sweep the power. Because we're not talking a Bill Clinton Democrat. We're not talking about Michael Dukakis. We're not talking about that breed. That establishment Democrat is gone. These are fire eaters. These are radicals. This is hardcore. They're not playing around. And they've openly said they're going to burn Trump's presidency to the ground. So he's going to be facing impeachments. They're going to defund everything. They want the Biden open border again. And they're going to see millions of them pour in. So you're no longer, look, I hate to say this. It's no longer a question of whether you're for or against Trump, really. The question now is, do you want a communist takeover, an Islamo-communist takeover of the United States? To me, this is about you, your children, and your grandchildren. And I'm going to be looking tonight very closely. And my prediction, El Said is going to clobber her. He's going to beat her like a drum. Because that's now the future of the Democratic Party. Now, I'm telling you, Bill Maher, a liberal's liberal, a progressive's progressive, the guy, I never thought much of him, to be honest. I don't think he's funny. I don't think he's smart. I never cared for him. All I'm telling you is he's been a staunch critic of conservatives and Republicans his entire career. He's a diehard Democrat man to the core. Is now saying he's good. He's done with the Democratic Party. Why? His words, not mine. They've been taken over by anti-Semitic Jew haters and radical communists. Bill Maher, he's gone. He's leaving. James Carville, if you want, I'll play you the cut. Carville says, I'm this close to leaving the Democratic Party. James Carville. It's the economy, stupid. He was the political strategist, the architect of Bill Clinton's first and second victory the Clintons' elections in 92 and 96. And I'll tell you who he's picking out. He's pointing out to an individual, I've mentioned him before, but get to know his name, because he's the Rush Limbaugh of the radical left. Hassan Piker, who, by the way, wasn't born in America. He was born a Muslim. He is a diehard Islamist, self-avowed Islamist. He wears the kafia, the Palestinian shawl. He is also an avowed communist. No, I don't mean fellow traveler, sympathizes with them. No. I mean, he's read the Communist Manifesto. He loves it. He says he wants it for America. He's calling for an all-out, he's an admirer of Mao. He dresses like, if he's not wearing the kafia, he's wearing Mao's general, that general's outfit that Mao used to wear with the cap and the red star. He's an all-out Maoist. Do you know who was sold shoulder to shoulder with El Sayed in Michigan as he delivered his final speech yesterday in Detroit? Hassan Piker. He and El Sayed are tied to the hip. Hassan Piker has been backing El Sayed all the way, just like he's close with Mamdani and all the other radical Islamo-communists. Now, Hassan Piker has openly said, by the way, he supported 9/11. Hassan Piker has come out and said America deserved it. In fact, according to him, 3,000 dead wasn't enough. He's calling for an Islamist, communist takeover and revolution in the United States. That's now the guru on the radical left. That's who's now, they're campaigning with him. He's campaigning with them. Carville has now come out and said, if Hassan Piker continues to be, his words, not mine, a dominant force in the Democrat Party, I am out. I cannot coexist with Hassan Piker. So Carville is running for the exits. Bill Maher is running for the exits. Finally now, some Jewish Democrats are waking up. They're running now to the exits. You really want the truth? I'm going to tell you the truth. They keep calling us Nazis and Hitler and fascists because it's classic projection. The 1930s are back. Anti-Semitism now dominates Europe. And now it dominates the Democrat Party. These are the kind of serious Jew haters you have not seen since the 1930s. And let me just say one last thing, because I want to show you how serious this moment is now. One of the things that I've always admired about the British is they have this tradition, both at Oxford and Cambridge, but even other universities, of the debate, the grand debate, in which, and this goes back centuries, it's tied to this Anglo-American belief in true freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, which leads to freedom of religion, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press. To me, these fundamental freedoms that to me are given to us by God. And that's why I'm so proud to be an American, because I truly believe in Americanism and the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights. Okay? But anyway, let that go. And the Brits always had this tradition that went on for centuries, that no matter what the issue, there is always two sides to a debate. And you have to let both sides have the free exchange of ideas. And then you let the people decide. But the one thing they said, you must have freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, genuine tolerance. Any position, doesn't matter. have a debate, and then let people using their common sense and their reason decide whether they agree or disagree. And one of these places is the Oxford Union. It's tied to Oxford University. And they always have debates on big, grand issues. They have for centuries. And it's really impressive because all the men, it's like a black tie event. So all the men show up in tuxedos and the women show up in beautiful gowns. Because this is Oxford. It's one of the leading universities of Great Britain in the world. And there's all this formality in terms of the debate and how many minutes and, and on and on. It's a very elaborate, I think a beautiful tradition. Well, Tommy Robinson and his supporters were given a chance to argue whether, quote, whether Europe should be suspicious of Islam. That was the question. Not should we get rid of Islam? Does Islam pose a threat to Europe? No. Just should Europe be suspicious of Islam? In other words, skeptical, questioning, maybe a little worried. Tommy Robinson was on one side. The radical left was on the other side. One of them was a female president of the Oxford Union. Outside the Oxford Union was a mob. I'm not exaggerating. A mob of either Muslims or pro-Islam supporters. They were chanting for Tommy Robinson's death. They were calling for a fatwa. And they said because he opposed the Islamization of Great Britain, because he opposed the growth of Sharia law in Great Britain, because he said that Islam is incompatible with British civilization, British history, British culture, British values, that they were calling for him to be murdered. Some of them were holding a noose and they were chanting, "Hand him over to us." Okay? The crowd was yelling in unison, "Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar." This is at Oxford. You can look it up. It's shocked the entire country. The female radical left wing, she's white. The female radical left wing president, the radical leftist, got up and to Tommy Robinson's face, 6 feet away, said, "The only reason why you're still alive at this very moment is because we decided to give you security. If not, we would have thrown you to the wolves, to the mob out there." And it shocked the entire room because she was saying it, you deserve to be thrown to the mob. If you challenge Islam or Sharia law or the Islamist takeover of Great Britain, you should be stoned, hung, or murdered, and we will throw you to the mob, to the wolves, to be eaten alive. Robinson was shocked. His supporters were shocked. She's saying, free speech is over. This tradition that we've had for centuries is gone. You're lucky we didn't kill you today. It's National Socialism. When they lose the argument because they can't beat Tommy Robinson in an argument, just the way they can't beat me in an argument, it's okay. Then we'll use force. Don't worry. We know how to take care of people like you. Don't worry. If you're not going to be cowed into submission, then we'll kill you. Now, I'm telling you, they don't have the numbers yet here, but they're getting here. They're getting there. The numbers are getting stronger and stronger, and their influence is getting stronger and stronger. El Said is with the mob in Britain. Mamdani is with that Muslim mob in Britain. The Democratic Party increasingly is with that Muslim mob in Great Britain at the Oxford Union. The 1930s are back. National Socialism is back. And it's found its home in the Democratic Party. You want to wear Nazi tattoos? No problem. You want to be a vicious anti-Semite? No problem. You want to be an Islamist who sides with Hamas and calls for the throats of Jews to be slit? No problem. Okay, good news. My sister, just very quickly, because I want to go to the phones, but just talk about timing. My wonderful sister and her husband, along with one of my nephews, Matthew, came back from a cruise, a sort of a cruise trip along Europe, along some of these European countries. And they went to France, they went to Spain, they went to Portugal, I believe. And of course, the last stop was in London. So they visited England as well. And this is what she wrote after the last segment. She writes, Jeff, I just came back from Europe. Last city I left was London. All I can say to all conservatives is run. Run to the polls and vote. It was horrible to see what has happened to all of these beautiful European cities and countries. Everyone over there is complaining of the Islamic takeover. It is everywhere, Jeff. In London, I walked through a beautiful part of the city where all the embassies are located. And then one chilling thing stands out. The Israeli embassy was the only one with heavily armed guards on the exterior, the outside of the building. Jeff, that says it all. Now, I'm telling you, that's what's on the ballot tonight in Michigan. And you watch that Democratic primary race. And my prediction, Abdul El Sayed, the Islamist, is going to win. 617, the primary. I'm not saying he's going to win the general. It looks like Rogers is going to be the Republican. And we'll see what happens. But for the primary, showing the takeover of the Democratic Party, El Sayed will win, and I don't even believe it's going to be close. Kathy in Rochester. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff.
Hi.
Once again, your show is just so informative. I just want to go back to talking about Jeanine Pirro because I was watching Newsmax this morning, and Judge Napolitano was kind of like, making a statement that, she didn't have the evidence to prosecute. And you laid out information that wasn't even available on Newsmax. So your show really is a must listen to for everyone. And I hope everyone who listens to your show shares your show with every single person they come across. When I'm out and about and I meet a fellow conservative, I show them on my phone how to listen to you live. And I want everyone to tune into your show because your show really is what people need to listen to educate themselves and tell others how to wake up and realize what is happening in this country. Take your head out of the sand, unbury your head that's in the sand, and wake up and start fighting like you never fought before because we are in a fight for our life, for our way of living. And the biggest problem right now, and we've talked about, are the Muslims. And I was listening to a podcast on what is it? Not on Rumble. I forgot where it was. But anyways, they were saying, Islam is not just a religion. It is a civilization. It is a civilization, and it is a civilization that is completely incompatible with our civilization. But yet these people are taking over every country, and they are taking over our country. And then we have idiots in this state like Senator Jamie Eldridge, who, came up with this stupid bill and act promoting the civil rights and inclusions of American Muslims in the Commonwealth. So everyone should pick up their phone and call Senator Jamie Eldridge and call their own senators and tell them, ditch this bill. We don't need to be putting Muslims anywhere because you cannot choose the Muslim religion over other religions. And who the hell are you to be promoting Muslims? So not only do we have the Muslims who are funded by George Soros and that other idiot who lives in China, I can't think of his name. He has a weird name.
Singham. His name is Singham.
Yes, exactly. So we have our own elected officials undermining us. So, I mean, we have a huge problem. And like you said, people are soft. They're soft as puppy poop. You know, people need to stand up and fight. But even the Republicans in this state, I was an independent and I became a Republican, and I'm getting really discouraged because they're so mamby-pamby. They don't have a pair. And, you know, I like people who are strong and people who fight. And this is a time, more than ever, we need to fight like our revolutionary forefathers because our country, our way of living is at stake. And people they have no idea what's going on. So, the listeners, we the people, we like the former MAGA people.
Kathy, can you hang on? Because I want to ask you two very important questions. So please hang on. I'm going to come back with Kathy. Okay, I want to go back to Kathy in Rochester. Kathy, I'm so happy you mentioned this bill because I touched on it yesterday on my X account, which you can, by the way, my handle is at the Kuhner Report. I'm always posting stuff on Massachusetts politics and on big stories in Massachusetts on my X account. So you can follow and you'll be completely up to date on what's going on. Now, because I want to ask Kathy this question, but just so that people understand, the bill, and she's right, it was sponsored by State Senator Jamie Eldridge, along with 13 other now co-sponsors. It would rewrite the U.S. Constitution. It's an unbelievable bill. And impose Sharia law here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And what this bill is really they're just duplicating what the liberals have done in Europe. It's an attempt to form an alliance and to appease radical Islam. And what this bill does is it creates a state commission that enshrines Islam as the preferred or privileged religion in Massachusetts. Not Jews, not Christians, not Hindus, no other. Islam is, they say openly, is a privileged religion. And that Muslims and Islam must now be represented in every level of government and in every level of law and every level of Massachusetts society. In other words, it is paving the way for the eventual Islamist infiltration and takeover of Massachusetts. It is now moving forward. So they've gone from the state Senate now into the state House. Maura Healey says, you put the bill on her desk, she will sign it. Now, my question to Kathy, why, and these are all white liberals that are pushing whatever, white communists, white radicals, white progressives, whatever term you want to use now, but it's the white radical left that is pushing this aggressively. Why? Why? And let me even throw this, because I'm telling you, this is the mind bender. The most ardent supporters of Mamdani, and now you're seeing it in Michigan, outside of Muslims, with this guy El Said, is the LGBTQ community. The LGBTQ radical left. To the point, I don't want to go back to the Oxford Union, but that president of the Oxford Union that said to Tommy Robinson, the mob is waiting for you, you're lucky we don't throw you to the mob, literally came out and then said in the debate that there is no homophobia in Islam. That there is no transphobia in Islam. I swear to you. I'm like, what? And what has stunned me, it's not just that there's so many LGBT leftists now backing El Said in Michigan, but women, white liberal women, 45, 50 and above, so I guess middle-aged, are throwing themselves at El Said. Throwing themselves. The more he says, put a woman in a hijab, put a woman in a burqa, impose Sharia law, the more he talks about, the Islamification of America, the more these white left-wing women are like, he's like a sex symbol. There's pictures. You got to see it. It's just these women fawning, grabbing him, like throwing themselves all over him. It's the same thing with Graham Plattner. They all said, the Nazi tattoo on his chest. Oh, my God. He's like this sex symbol. They want to tear his clothes off. I don't know, lick the SS tattoo. I don't know what the hell they want to do with it. But what I don't understand, seriously, is why are so many white leftists willing now to bend the knee to Islam, like they're doing here in Massachusetts in this ridiculous law, and rewrite the U.S. Constitution? CARE is fully supporting the state commission, as is the ACLU. The ACLU, as I pointed out in my ex tweet, the ACLU now, along with CARE, is now supporting making Islam a privileged, preferred religion, a protected religion in Massachusetts. ACLU now supports Sharia. So why are so many white radical leftists bending the knee? What bending the knee? They're kissing their feet. They're licking their toes. Bending the knee to Islam. Why are so many on the LGBTQ radical left making this, to me, fatal alliance with these Islamo-Nazis? And honestly, why are middle-aged, white, left-wing, feminist women, they're going crazy for either Islamists or pro-Muslim Jew haters like a Plattner? What is it about the swastika or the Muslim crescent that is making all these white liberal women go absolutely gaga? No, really, I don't see it. Like, what, you like being dominated? What, they like being abused? Like what, they like being mistreated? I don't understand this. Kathy, do you have a theory? And honestly, I'm asking you because you're an educated woman, a conservative woman, obviously. Do you have any insight into why so many liberal, middle-aged women are fawning for Islamist or pro-Muslim anti-Semitic men? What's your theory?
Well, all I can do is revert back to Michael Savage's statement. Liberalism is a mental disorder, and they are mentally ill. These people are seriously mentally ill. First of all, a lot of these LGBTQ whack jobs, they're covered in tattoos. They've got nose rings, pink hair, purple hair, yellow hair, orange hair. They're nuts. They're wackos. They belong in a circus. They're mentally deranged. And you have got to be mentally deranged to be a lesbian or a gay, a lesbian woman, and support this. They'd kill you in a minute. And what's amazing, though, Jeff, is to understand, that's the key with this country. Most people do not understand, and neither do I. I understand just the tip of the iceberg, but they do not understand what the Muslim religion is about. In the Quran, it says that you can lie. You can lie to promote the Muslim religion. So these people are lying at the Oxford Union. They are lying, stating that the Muslim religion is not homophobic. They're lying. And, that's what they're doing. I'm going to look for that podcast, and I'm going to email it to you so you can listen to this, because what I found to be very interesting, this person really knew what he was talking about. He said the Quran is only 14% of this religion's books. There are two other books, and one of them is on Muhammad's life. Now, Muhammad married a 6-year-old child and had sex with her at age 9. So all these people want to follow Muhammad because he is like their savior. And it's all about Muhammad. These are sick people. When you understand the Muslim religion, you realize how sick they are. They stone women. They kill dogs. I mean, they're sick people. And me, being a 67-year-old woman, I grew up with freedom, and I'll be damned if I'm ever going to have some Muslim telling me what I'm going to do and, following Sharia law. I'll fight to my death before I will follow Sharia law. That's how I feel about it. And that's how we all have to become. We all have to start to be brave. We have to be brave hearts. We have to fight for what's right. And this insanity with this Islam taking over our country and the world, it is wrong. And who's going to stand up and fight? I mean, like you say, this is for your children, your grandchildren. If you love your children and you love your grandchildren, you better start fighting, because your children are either going to live in a communistic China country, or they're going to be living Sharia law with just their eyeballs showing.
Kathy, by the way, very well said. Really well said. Kathy, do me a favor. Since you're doing me a favor, actually you're doing me a favor by sending me that podcast, but if you could do me another favor, look up this new mosque in Dearborn, Michigan. Just please look it up, because you're not going to believe it. It's that massive. It's that big. It's that imposing. Look at the parking lot. Look at the cars. Look how many people. And ask yourself, did you ever think you would live to see the day? Tom, red, white, and blue dynamite baby in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Tom. And as always, welcome.
Jeff Kuhner, the Kuhner Report. We fight against all enemies of the Constitution. That's red, white, and blue dynamite, baby.
Tom, what's on your mind, my friend?
God bless you, Jeffrey. Jeff, it starts with Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and it ends with, I believe, in the way I know good and evil, that Muhammad resides in hell. So if you start there, it gets very easy. Jeff, jihad, fatwas, Sharia law are enemies of the Constitution. Todd Blanche, Kash Patel, Homeland Security, ICE, where are you? Shut down these mosques that are preaching that. We pay many, many dollars in tax money for you to defend us. Where are you? Kash Patel, we'll have a beer together after you shut down these fundamental jihadist mosques. They're not radical. The radicals are the peaceful Muslims, as we know, Jeffrey. Jeff, this is Islamification of America. Bring back the Commission on Anti-American Activities. Let's roll, baby. We shouldn't have to fight this battle. We have teams that we pay for that should do this for us. What do you think, Jeffrey?
Well, Tom, as usual, you're clicking on all cylinders. Look, bring back HUAC. I've been saying that for a very long time. The way they smeared McCarthy, the way they smeared HUAC. Again, I can cite to you author after author after author, scholar after scholar, who, when they investigated, said, you know what? Almost everybody McCarthy said was a communist. So, to me, bring back the House Un-American Activities Committee and do what we, should do regarding these Islamo-communists. Look, Mamdani is a traitor to this country. This guy El Sayed is a traitor to this country. I can run down the whole list. Who's financing them? Who's backing them? Who's supporting them? Look at the money that's pouring in. I can guarantee you're going to see a lot of money funded from Pakistan, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Hamas, from Hezbollah. These are fifth columnists that are clearly now being funded to sabotage and overthrow and subvert the United States from within. There's no question. Who the hell came up with this idea of a state commission to make Islam a privileged religion in the Massachusetts? We're going to have Sharia law now in Massachusetts? Who funded that? I mean, I know Jamie Eldridge was the state senator who initially sponsored the bill, but who the hell pressured him? And you've got CARE involved. Who paid off the ACLU? You want, no, all they've been doing is saying separation of church and state. Now they want to fuse mosque and state. I've never seen anything like this. So, look, I agree with you. We've got to take the gloves off. And, you know, that's why we pay the salaries of members of Congress and their staffers. Like, do something. Do your job. Instead of going on 4, 5, 6 week vacations. And yes, bring back HUAC. And bring it back now. Tom, as always, thank you, my friend. Craig in Canton. Craig, I hate to do this to you. I've got 1 minute left. The floor is all yours. Go.
Kuhner, man, I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. Kuhner, I'm going to try to make it quick, brother. I got to say, you know, procedural justice is, it's so funny how it doesn't work. It's not real. Being racist is okay if you hate the white person, if you hate white men. And, you know, it's kind of weird. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. You know, it's okay to all of a sudden talk about exterminating an entire group of people. Didn't they try that once in history? And we learned that when we were kids. It's really bad and a big no-no to wipe out an entire religion and race. The Muslim religion, I'll tell you, Jeff, there's no reasoning with them. I told Mike earlier a solution that I will not repeat. You can ask him about it. But, you know, it's kind of the kryptonite to Superman as to how to fix that whole Iran situation. But final point is...
Craig, we're up against it. But no, look, I hear you. When they chant from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, they're calling for the annihilation of the Israeli Jews.